here's an experiment. Let's see if this works, and if it works, we can do more of them. I'm just going to think out loud. So this is informal and yeah, might not be any good. P-Munch on the Discord asks about managing more than 100 customers, where each of those customers doesn't need a whole lot going on. They just need some files in a folder within the context of a broader Johnny.Decimal structure. So this got me thinking more broadly about the different ways that you can expand a Johnny.Decimal system, because there are a couple. So let's go through them and let's see which one feels most appropriate here. The first way is the one that's documented on the multiple systems page on the website, 1301, which is you make more room at the front, if you like. So let's draw that out. So you put another thing at the front. In this case, we're using P01 as like our first personal system. So you get P01 and then all of your normal Johnny.Decimal stuff, which, just as a reminder, you get 10 areas, 100 categories, and 100 IDs in each category. So that just gives you basically limitless more systems. That's fine. It's well documented on the website. I won't talk about it much more here. The thing about this is it's kind of heavy in a way, and I like to think if you are going to create a new system, now you're creating many 10,000 IDs again, and you've got to manage them all again. And I kind of like to think of a new system like something that you context switch into. You don't just flick between systems. When you move to another system, it's like a whole brain shift. You change tools. Maybe you go somewhere else. You go to work and you use a system. I've been using my D85 Johnny.Decimal system all day, and that's the one I'm in all day. And when I finish work, and then later on I'm doing something personal, that's my personal system. It's quite a big shift. So this doesn't feel appropriate in this situation. The next, the alternative is to, instead of expanding at the front, expand at the back. So let's see how that looks. So what we're doing here, let's just say we got 7079, we're at 7202, which is just standard Johnny.Decimal. This was a real life example. I used this when we did the data center deployment that I've spoken about a bunch of places. 7202 was the structured cabling, which is a thing you do in a data center. You go and put some cables in. But we had 13 data centers, so I didn't really want a different ID for the structured cabling at this data center and the structured cabling at that data center. I kind of wanted one ID for the structured cabling, but then I've got to do it 13 times across these data centers. So what I did in this situation, each one of them already had a little code, and if it didn't, just make one up. So I had 72.02.x47.z31.q81, where these things here related to the particular site. So this is structured cabling in London, this is structured cabling in New York, and so on. That worked really nicely in that situation. I haven't documented this, I keep meaning to. I think this can be quite a graceful solution in certain situations. Possibly still not this one though, because think about P-Munch's problem is where is what represents a customer here? Is that 7202, and then is each one of these customers? So I think that's probably not the solution either. Bear in mind, this is kind of a bit subfoldery. Okay, the third way, so first way, extend from the front. The second way, extend at the back. The third way involves fundamentally affecting these numbers. What if we had more than 100 categories? What if we had more than 100 IDs per category? So we kind of break the structure of the decimal, but we keep this hierarchy. I think the thing I like about decimal is it's shallow. You know, you can't just keep going. So what if we kept that? And let's see how this looks. So here's one way of looking at this, and this is one of the things P-Munch suggested on Discord. Just extend all or one of your category ranges and just make them bigger. So let's say 100 to 199 now has 100 categories in there. That's actually still going to work mostly within the rest of the structure. Area folders are still going to sort. 2029 still comes after. I think that's not a bad solution. I've used this in a few situations and it's okay. So now we've got 100 categories and each category is a customer. So if you only need up to 100, that's going to work okay. And then for each customer then, what I would say, keep your IDs identical and templated per customer. So if 102 187.31 is accounts receivable for this customer. 187.31 has to be accounts receivable for every customer. .31 is accounts receivable. .26 is, whatever. That could work quite nicely. The other thing you could do, instead of expanding your categories, I don't know how I feel about this because it kind of really affects the shape of your system, and that becomes a bit clumsy sometimes. I have done this in a past job and it was okay. What if you just had more than 100 IDs per category? So now let's just say we've got the standard structure here. Category 33 is your customers category. And instead of having 33.01, just extend that number. So now we don't just have 100 possibilities here, which if you've got about 100 customers feels fragile because you don't want to be deleting customers to make room. If you've got 87, you don't want to think, we can't acquire 13 more customers. You want to leave heaps of room. So just give yourself loads more room. Now you've got 1,000, 33.001, 002. Put the leading zero in so it all sorts. So now this is all standard up here, which I like. And all you've done is extend that last number. So to be clear, this third method, the first method extended the entire thing from the front. The second method extended from the back. This third method involves kind of growing the middle, like blow the balloon up, Give yourself more room, but within this boundary. I think I like this because it feels clean. You can then have within each customer, give yourself a handful of subfolders, but in the same way that I just said about making them all identical, make those subfolders identical per customer, even put a number at the front of them, 01 accounts receivable, 02 contact list, whatever. Make them all identical so they're templated. I think I'm okay with that. Let me see about my notes here. The thing about the second method where we had 7202.xyz, and that's what you've identified, PMunch, is that you don't want to hang a customer off every ID. You don't want your whole system with IDs all through the place with customers hanging off the back of them. Because now how do you get a view of all of the customers? That's more difficult. Whereas with this, how do you get a view of any given customer? It's just an ID. You might not want these to sort by number. I've got a trick for that as well. Let me know. I have no idea if this was helpful. If it was helpful, let me know. If it wasn't, keep your mouth shut. We can do this more often. I can do this once a week, maybe. Let's just stick it out and see what happens. Thank you.